What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Ghouls Gaming and Tech channel. Now, I was sitting in this room, this very room here, and just thinking about how far we've come from the days where new phones, they were exciting. Like, I was thinking, like, what happened? Like, I remember there were so many different types of phones that you could get, and they gave you such personality. But I feel like nowadays, you don't really get that interesting or unique type of phone anymore. Like back in the day, I feel like most cell phone providers made their own phones, but primarily now most cell phone providers don't make phones at all. Like T-Mobile, I don't believe they make a phone. Verizon, they don't make a phone. Like AT&T, like, yeah, they might have the budget, like super low budget phones, but it's primarily, as far as the cell phone marketplace, it's primarily run by Apple, Samsung, Motorola-ish kinda, and Huawei. And Google. Obviously, we can't forget Google. But yeah, they're not service providers. Like, you can't get cell service through them. So it's a different dynamic now. It's primarily the manufacturers, and then it's the service providers. I feel like back in the day when more companies made phones, it was such a wide array of different style phones. And now pretty much everything is restricted, for the most part, to these candy bar slab type of phones right here. Now, this is the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and most phones are pretty much shaped like this, a flat slab of phone. Now, obviously, to Samsung's credit and to other companies' credit, like Google, Huawei, even Motorola, you will get a flip or folding or even tri-fold type of phone, but that is not the majority. Most phones are slab phones. But yes, Google makes a folding phone. Samsung and Motorola, they make a flip phone. And then Apple, at least until we see something different, just makes, the slab phones. But most phones are those slab candy bars. So I say all that to say, I wanted to take a look back to look at some of the unique and most iconic phones that were released in the early 2000s that pretty much gave everyone some type of personality. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look at some of these and rate these. But yes, if you're new to this channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. If you're new or returning, make sure to hit that like button. It's definitely appreciated. It's the best way that I and YouTube knows you guys enjoy these type of videos. And also hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any uploads on this channel. So the first phone that we're gonna take back and rate, this is probably, as far as iconic phones, this is definitely probably in the top 3. I feel like everyone had this phone. And what phone is that? It's the Motorola Razr. First one. That was probably one of the most peak phones that you could ever get, was a Motorola Razr. Everybody had this phone when it came out. This is one of the flip phones that revolutionized flip phones. I feel like with the color options, and that's another thing. I feel like back in the day, the color options, they were all over the place. And that's what gave people so much personality. As you can see, you had silver, you had white, you had pink, you had red, you had blue. So many different, and I even think they had a green version, a gold version. You had so many different options for this Motorola Razr. Like, oh man, I feel like this was that first step into the future when it came to cell phones. Like, this was the coolest phone of the time when it came out, hands down, no competition. I would give this 10 out of 10. You can't give this anything less than a 10. Motorola Razr, they do have a touch phone now, basically a Razr like flip phone, and as you can see right here, it pretty much looks like the Galaxy Z flip phone. Lightning doesn't strike twice for this one right here. All right, so the next phone on the iconic throwback list, early 2000s, is pretty much any and all Nokia phones. Yeah, the Razr set the bar and made everybody feel like, they were taking that step into the new age. But I feel like everybody had this Nokia at one point. Everybody, because this is one of the first like handheld phones that was pocketable that you can walk around with, and everybody remembers playing like Snake and Tetris and all that stuff on this eventually. But this Nokia phone, everybody typing with T9, super compact. It was probably about this big, And again, with the color options, they had so many different colors that you could choose from, and the iconic Nokia ringtone that everybody heard. I'm not gonna play it now because I'm pretty damn sure that sound is copyright. But that sound was iconic, and this phone itself was iconic. I had one of these in particular, and also I had the Razr as well, the Motorola Razr. But I think this was actually my first phone, and I just remember having to load minutes on the phone to make phone calls and text message, and it did run out a lot. And yes, the nostalgia is there, but I feel like the Motorola Razr topped it. All right, so now we have a phone that is near and dear to me, because at the time, and even now, I think it's still, the design holds up to this day. But this was hands down my favorite phone of all time, just because of the design alone, and also because I missed out. I never got one for myself, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys know this phone. It is the Sidekick, and in particular for me, 3, the Sidekick 3, but the Sidekick in general. Oh my God, I feel like you were the person. You were that person if you had a Sidekick phone. This just and this was made by T-Mobile. T-Mobile, like I said, back in the day when companies made phones, you had so much variety. The scrollable wheel right here, man, I'm getting so much, because my buddy, who we were on the same football team, he would let me like use his just to see how it was. Again, nothing special about the user interface, at least for now, but back then this was amazing. And it swiveled, the swivel, it would come, look, you can see this picture right here. It's original, like this one's bedazzled, but it would come like this, but then you can flip your thumb to swivel it up. But I believe, I could be mistaken, because like I said, I never had one of these for myself, but I believe that screen was touchscreen. And one thing I will say, I don't know if you guys noticed, but back in the day, phones were so durable, and you could take out the battery pack. They were made out of plastic, mostly all of them. So they were so much more durable. You can drop these phones so much. You can't do that anymore because everything's made out of freaking metal and glass. And obviously, if you drop any phone now, it's going to crack. Obviously, I'm giving this 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. All right, so the next phone on the list, and I actually had one of these for a short time, is, to me, second to the Sidekick or Sidekick 3. Everybody had these. And if you're a business person, you for sure had one of these. It was just so, it made you feel so sophisticated, so business savvy, like you were important, like you had things to do. Like you don't hit this line on this phone unless you talking business. And with that business word, I'm pretty sure most of you guys know what's coming next. It was the Blackberry. Come on, man. It had so many variations and iterations of this. I think this is the actual one I had myself. But to be honest, I had no business having this phone. I was not that important to be using a freaking Blackberry. It had so many functions on it that I didn't even know what they were for. But people who are actually business savvy, who conducted business on this phone, they knew what those things were for. They utilized those. Not me. I was a freaking kid, man. It's just tough going back to a physical keyboard. Would I have this just for nostalgia purposes? Yeah, I would. I would use one of these. And the Blackberry is one of the first phones that had an actual stylus on it. Now, we all see these stylus now with these newer phones, i.e. the Galaxy S25 Ultra or the Notes when they were coming out. But yeah, Blackberry, definitely in the top. All right, next phone. Obviously, this one revolutionized everything. And this one isn't as OG as some of the other ones, but it's still OG. This basically changed the entire trajectory of phones now. And that's no other than the iPhone. This thing was super iconic, and I don't think I've ever had one of these. I had the original iPod, but I didn't have the iPhone 1. But obviously, this changed the trajectory of every phone we see now. Every phone. No phone can say that they have not taken influence from the iPhone. It's just too iconic. Thank you, Steve Jobs. May he RIP. Not too much, shine, glitz, and glamour at all, really. Pretty thick, if you ask me. But it's a touchscreen phone. You can make calls, send emails. Obviously everything that we can do with phones now. This basically just was the catalyst for all that. So, yeah. All right, next phone on the list is this LG Chocolate, or just the LG, this version of the phone anyway. Now, this was one of the first like vertically sliding phones. There was a Virgin Mobile one. Sheesh, I forgot about that company, but Virgin Mobile made a vertical sliding phone as well. Everybody had this one as well. That was like the next step up from the Nokia for a lot of people. Just basically playing most of your MP3s and stuff on this phone. Again, super iconic, very narrow, like a candy bar. That's the best way I can describe it. But this Nokia KG800 was the phone. Just basically, people use this as a MP3 player for the most part. Obviously, you can like make calls and stuff. It didn't stick out as much to me, so this goes below Nokia for me. Next phone on the list is the Sony Ericsson right here. Again, you don't even see really Sony making too much of any phones now. They do have some one-offs here and there, but as far as the masses using this, you don't really see that. I did have this phone. Believe it or not, I did have this phone, and I thought this was a great phone. Look at this charge port. Holy crap. Look at this thing. This thing is huge down here. Imagine your charging port being that big right now. Would not happen. But yeah, as you can see, T9 all day. The screen, huge bezels. Look at this, clearly made out of plastic. That's what I'm saying. These phones were so durable back in the day, man. So durable. I didn't want a big phone at the time. If you wanted a smaller phone and you wanted it to look a little bit nicer than a Nokia phone, this was the phone you got back in the day. I loved this phone, man. I didn't have it too long. Again, other colors, you had this red, and it wasn't like a super special edition that they made you pay like a whole bunch of extra money for. You just pick whatever color you want, and that's the one you got. Goes above the Nokia for me, but just under the LG phone. And the last one, you can't talk about OG phones or iconic phones from the early 2000s without talking about the Motorola Nextel. Boom. This introduced a completely new game for a lot of people. Now, I will say, I mostly saw construction workers using this because here it goes right here. This is the one I was looking for, because they made this yellow and black version. I only saw construction workers with it, but this introduced the chirp that is famous from Motorola, which is basically the walkie-talkie feature. So it wasn't necessarily, you know, it was limited on what you could talk, text, and web and all that stuff, but it's mainly talk and text back in the day. But this kind of gave you a different avenue to talk to someone without using minutes. It was like you're chirping, you're using a walkie-talkie. But yeah, you guys, that is my list of the most iconic phones from the early 2000s. And as far as my ratings, like I said, the Motorola Razr, 10 out of 10. The Nokia, I'll give that probably an 8 out of 10 just because of what it meant. The Sidekick, or Sidekick 3, whichever one you want. Sidekick 2, 10 out of 10. The Blackberry, 10 out of 10. The iPhone, just because of what it meant, 10 out of 10. The LG Chocolate, probably a 7 out of 10. The Sony Ericsson, I'll give that probably an 8 out of 10. And the Motorola Nextel, I'm gonna give that a probably 6 out of 10, because it didn't really, like I said, I don't think that one really resonated with like the youth. But like I said, I only saw construction workers using that. There are tons of phones back in the day that you could choose from, but these, I think, were the ones that really shaped and kind of changed the culture of just people being social, people interacting with one another, and just having a personalized cell phone. But like I said, all these phones now are made out of like glass and metal, so they're kind of fragile with a higher price tag, which is crazy. These phones were very cheap. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I really appreciate it. As always, love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.